Everybody knows this by now. It's a big week in the National Football League. It's Super Bowl week. It's media week leading up to the big game coming up this Sunday. Super Bowl 57. Hard to believe 57 already. Going to be in the books. Eagles and the Chiefs coming up this Sunday. A lot of people have been involved in Media Week, and Special Olympics has been also involved in Media Week. And I'm joined by somebody who is a big part of this and has a big role in it as well. Former NFL player, and I won't get into his title quite yet because it's really long. Ray Roberts joins me here on In Conversation. How are things?
It's going good, man. We're actually at a conference here in Charlotte right now, just trying to tighten up our ship and so that we can deliver better outcomes to the people we serve.
Beautiful. That's you know what, I could end the conversation right now. That's all I need to know. It's a great it's a great thing you guys do and all that. But no, I've been privileged to talk to a lot of different people from Special Olympics, not just Special Olympians themselves, but also people like yourself. I've never though spoken to somebody, Ray, that has as long a title as you do. So I'm gonna say it like this, and I want you to break it down for me. You're the Director of Urban Program Development at Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools. A lot to digest with that, so take us through it.
Yeah, so basically what it is we have a strategy called Unified Champion Schools, and it has three components to it, which is unified sports, where you have students with and without intellectual and developmental disabilities on the same teams. You have inclusive youth leadership, which is the same concept around leadership clubs and teams, non-athletic teams at the school. And then there's a wide whole school engagement where you bring activities and events that bring awareness to the abilities of our athletes. And so we use sports as a way to drive and to drive inclusion. And it seems like a pretty big topic or a big broad way to say it, but we break it down by going to these schools. And right now we're in about over 8,300 schools around the country. And my title, Director of Urban Development, is to get that strategy into our city schools around the country. So I travel around talking to superintendents and principals and teachers and sometimes mayors to try to get them to adopt our strategy in our city schools and our large metropolitan cities around the country. And right now, of our over 8,300 schools, we're in about 2,500 of those schools are from that city urban school district.
I guess you have to like to talk if you do what you do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it's the talking and it's the convincing, because we try to not make it sound like it's more work for the schools, because a lot of our city schools are already understaffed and have their own challenges and things to overcome. So we don't want them to feel like we're asking them to do something extra. We try to integrate it into what they're doing and make it part of the culture of the school. And then we also have this concept around intergenerational leadership. So there's a transfer of power from the adults in the school to the students in the school, so that most things are student run.
Schools are so important, right? So important in any country, and the kids, the youth. It's our future, not just the present, but the future. How did you get involved with Special Olympics?
Yeah, so in 2018, they had the Special Olympics USA Games in Seattle, and I was asked to be an ambassador. And so I was going around trying to help fundraise for the games and talking about inclusion and diversity. And I had worked at Microsoft as a diversity specialist, so I had a different perspective on it and could speak on it at a different level. And so then Special Olympics North America came to me and said, hey, we're not doing as great a job with this Unified Champion Schools work in our city schools. We're doing a great job in suburbia, and it's a really easy, low-hanging fruit, and people are into it. There's money, finances, space, room, and all that. But we have some things we need to overcome in our city schools in order to do this, and we think that you could be the guy to do it, and mostly because of the gift of gab. being able to talk and communicate with folks and influence folks. So I jumped at it because I've always fancied myself as a person that wanted to help other underrepresented people find their voice. That's what I had to do as a kid growing up, and I really feel like that's my purpose in life. And so this kind of brings it all together, where I can do that and still be around sports and still be engaged with our young people.
It's a great transition into what I wanted to get into next. Good segue about how you were growing up like that, trying to be included in a whole bunch of different things. So Asheville, North Carolina, that's where you grew up. Take me into that too, growing up, and also how you got into football. And when did the love of football, because we'll talk about Seattle and Detroit in just a second. Right.
Yeah, so, I grew up, pretty poor up in the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina, and pretty racially charged area at the time. So it's a really it was a real distinction between, black and white. And so, we had a tough go at it from time to time growing up. But I found that being on the football field and being in sports kind of leveled the playing field for everybody. And then there were, I'm not going to lie, off the field, sometimes you got into little scuffles and things like that. But when you see enough of your friends and things getting arrested or going to jail or getting hurt, you go like, well, I don't want a part of that either, And so I found that playing football, when you knock someone down and hit them hard, they pat you on the back. And so I was like, man, I need more of that in my life, And so I really do think that having the place to kind of exercise and, get rid of some of that energy and some of that emotion that you didn't know what to do with as a kid really drove me to football and allowed me to be a good football player, because it just really fed that part of me that needed that type of adoration and that place to kind of exercise some frustrations and angers and some things emotions and feelings that you just didn't understand. And
did it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Did it? And this is probably not phrased the right way, but I'll say it anyway. Did it make you feel good to go out and kind of take out some stresses, because everybody needs to do it, and if you do it in a way where it's football, where, hey, you know what, you're supposed to hit somebody, so good job, as you say, getting a pat on the back. But did you feel that was a really big stress reliever for you growing up?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because I mean, I just knew that I really valued my freedom.
Right. Yeah. Well said.
And so I was just like, if I go do this on the football field, I get celebrated and people pat me on the back, and, my parents are happy, the fans are happy, my coaches are happy, my teammates, I'm happy. Yeah. And so I could do that without, doing it off the field and getting in trouble and then like really putting my life on a totally different trajectory. And so I had seen enough of my friends and family and people in our community kind of go that route that I was just like, that's not the route for me. And so football just kind of became that thing. I played some basketball too, but just the physicality of football is kind of what drew me to it. Just hitting someone as hard as you can. Yeah. And I mean, it's as closest thing you can get to a street fight that was legal and people separated. So it really fed that piece of me that really needed to be fed at the time.
Well, you turned that into a career in the NFL with Seattle first. You got drafted, then, of course, with Detroit. Take me into draft day, draft night, the feelings that were going through you and the family and et cetera, your friends.
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting night because I woke up that morning and got a call from the Dallas Cowboys, and they said, hey, like, can we have a representative at your apartment? And I'm just like, man, I don't know. And so I called my agent and said, hey, like, the Cowboys said they wanted to have a guy, watch the draft with me, they're going to try to trade up to get me. Yeah. And he said, oh, sure. And so as soon as I called the Cowboys back and said, yeah, there was a knock at the door. So the dude was just standing outside the whole time, just waiting to get the okay. And so he came in, and then every time, like starting probably around like the third pick in the draft, anytime a team would call me, then I had to let him talk to them to see if they would trade to try to get move up to get me. So that excited me because it meant like, some good teams really wanted me. And so the Seahawks ended up calling, and I was on the call with the Seahawks, and they were trying to get me to agree to a contract before they drafted me, and I wouldn't do it. And so then they just said, okay, talk to you later. So I thought I had messed up. And then as we were sitting there waiting for them to make the announcement, the guy took the card up to the commissioner, and I heard him repeat my name. And that's when I knew that I was going to get drafted. So everybody erupted after that. I had my girlfriend there, my parents there, and my agent, some friends, and my apartment was full of some of my teammates and things like that. So it was, it really truly was like, from a financial point, like winning the lottery, but from a dream point of view, like you're getting to live this dream out that you've dreamed about, your entire life of playing professional football. That's pretty sneaky, though, of the Dallas Cowboys to do that, right? Yeah. And that dude ate all our food, too.
He did? Oh.
Yeah. My mom was like, when is he going to stop eating?
Yeah. Well, you know what? He didn't get you, but he got food. So at least he got something out of the whole thing, right? So take me through the first few years. They struggled, right, in Seattle. Yeah. It wasn't best seasons. I think your first year was 2-14, something like that. Must have been tough, the transition, number one, from coming out of younger days playing football to the NFL, but also going to a struggling team. Talk a bit about that. Yeah, and the hard thing was that, when you're a high draft pick like that, there's a lot of pressure that people think you're going to be the difference.
And so, which is kind of hard to do as an offensive lineman because you don't touch the ball. You can't make people miss. You can't catch. You can't throw. But that was the expectation that I came in with. Was like, oh, this is going to be the guy that kind of gets us over the hump. And but then, I came from a Virginia program at the time that was pretty good. We're always in the top 10 or top 15. As a matter of fact, we're at one point my junior year, we're number one in the country for a month. So we had a really good football team. But when I got to Seattle, man, we just did not have the weapons on offense. We didn't have an established quarterback. Brian Blades was our best receiver, and he's like a really good slot receiver at best. We had a really good running back in Chris Warren. We had a really good defense, but we were just losing games, man, like at a historical rate. I think we only averaged like 8 points a game my first year in the league, and we had a top 10 defense, which is kind of weird. Like they give us the ball back on a short field, we couldn't even get a touchdown. I think we had
you just couldn't score.
We had 4 games where we didn't score points. Wow. So it was really hard that first year, and then we got a little bit better before I left. I think my best season at Seattle was 8-8, but yeah, I think probably about halfway through my rookie season is when it kind of came on. Like, okay, I know what I'm doing, I understand the plays, the speed of the game, and then I played well after that. But those first 6, 7, 8 games, man, it was like just throw me in the fire, and I was just kind of learning as we go, and I didn't know the playbook very well because I missed most of training camp and a little bit out of shape because I was eating hamburgers instead of lifting weights when I was holding out. So so it took me a little while to get going, but then after that I felt pretty good and to kind of establish myself as one of the better left tackles in the league.
You mentioned, you were amazing. Started 116 games over the course of your career. So you went to Detroit. You mentioned Chris Warren, really good running back. I remember watching him play. You also were in front and part of a pretty decent running back in Barry Sanders in Detroit. Not many guys get to play with Barry. I always think about Barry whenever I watched him play. To me, he's one of the most gifted athletes I've ever seen. And he just kind of went about his own way. And he decided one day, you know what, I'm done with it. And then he kind of walked off without any fanfare. Talk about Barry Sanders, too, and also the transition from one team to the other to Detroit. It's not that they were as bad as Seattle, but still you had some struggles. Yeah,
the transition wasn't as difficult because there was probably, Herman Moore was a receiver on that team, and Herman and I were freshmen together at Virginia, and he left the year early. So I really knew Herman. Don Mikowski was a quarterback that, was older than us, but we knew of him and had relationships with him. So I kind of felt good about the environment and culture there because, I talked to Herman a lot about it. And then the hardest part about the transition was just learning to block for Barry, man. Chris Warren was a big running back, 6'1" or 6'2", 225 pounds. If you say run through the A gap, he's running through the A gap. Whereas Barry, you say run through the A gap, and he might be on the C gap on the backside. So it's like, you're just like, I don't know. Yeah, so I think like my first couple games, I may have tackled Barry more than the defense did because I kept running into him. I'm like, oh, you're not even supposed to be over here. And so I learned to just kind of keep my head down and block and I have to watch the film on Monday to see all the incredible things that he did. So, but Barry is a very unassuming dude. He wasn't, I don't know if he would fit in today's climate of athletes because he's not very demanding. He doesn't draw a lot of attention to himself off the field. He works very hard. He's not going to challenge the organization to bring this person in or that person in. He wasn't the guy that wanted that type of power. And then even the year that we rushed for 2,000 yards, the first 2 games, Barry had only carried the ball maybe 12 times for like 53 yards, and he wasn't even complaining about it. But the whole offensive line was complaining about it. We were going to the offensive coordinator going like, dude, like the best player isn't even touching the ball. And so, and then from that point on, we rushed for 2,000 yards in 14 games, and Barry never really tracked the stats. Barry's big thing was getting to the Super Bowl, getting to playoff games. And it was too bad we weren't able to deliver him to that because the dude is a great player, a great person, and just one of those mega superstars at the time that really had no ego, man. Like just a really cool dude.
None.
Just and score a touchdown. Even though I like some of the celebrations now, but Barry just scored a touchdown, hand the ball to the referee,
that was it.
Run to the sideline, and that was it. So just had a lot of respect for the dude.
I do too, watching him play. And you're right when it comes to the NFL now. I mean, he's one of the best running backs ever of all time, I think, in the National Football League. But it's a different game now. So I'm with you with that. You retired. We'll get back into Special Olympics just a bit as well. You're very open about, and I think it's very important that anybody in this day and age, even before and down the road, to talk about mental health. That's a huge thing in this world. And you've been very open about the transition from football to life after football. It was not that easy. easy. So if you
Right.
feel free to share a bit about that, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I've kind of prided myself in the locker room. I was a captain on all the teams I've ever played on, graduated degrees from Virginia. And so just felt like a super intelligent dude. And I was going to be prepared when my time ended to just walk into the next part of my life. And I wasn't. And so I remember just I would get off the bed, get on the couch, get back to the bed, turn off all the lights, cover my head. Like, it was just like I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who I was or, where I wanted to land. So I was super depressed. And so dealt with a lot of depression. And then just here recently, like maybe a year or so before the pandemic started, started having like panic attacks and anxiety attacks, and on top of some depression and stuff, and just really needed to find a way to get some help. And so reached out to the NFL, and they had a program I could go to in Michigan, and it was a residential place. And so I spent about 32 days there kind of getting my brains right and understanding how to find the right coping mechanisms and skills and things to deal with what I deal with. And so I just know that now that it's just kind of part of who I am. And so I do a lot of stuff, man. I do a lot of stuff in the community in Seattle. I do sports radio in Seattle. But I really wanted to lend my voice to something that was super, super meaningful, more than just saying who's going to win the Super Bowl, who's the best quarterback or whatever, but something that's going to move the needle in the lives of people. And so I have a podcast I'm going to start here in a few weeks that's centered around mental health, especially for men, African-American men, and athletes.
Amazing.
Because those are places where sometimes with the mental health, it's considered a weakness. But, like I told my kids, when you're struggling mentally and you can ask for help, you're operating from a position of power. When you're afraid to ask for help, you're operating from a deficiency. And so we always want to be in a position of power where we can control the things that we can't control and get help when we need it. And so that's kind of the angle I come at it. There's a lot of our guys, my friends and former teammates that are suffering in silence. And I don't want them to do that. I don't want anyone to suffer in silence, but especially family and friends and people that you went to battle with and went to war with. You don't want them to suffer that way. And so I just feel like it's my purpose to kind of have a voice to that and lend my voice to that and bring some attention to it.
I admire that. Absolutely respect that. Want to get your thoughts, too, just before we get back into Special Olympics in just a bit, about the game of football now, and it kind of ties into mental health. The game's tough. You played it. It's very tough. You see so many of these concussions these days in the National Football League. You saw that absolutely scary thing with Damar Hamlin not too long ago. Thank goodness he's okay. That was just an unbelievable moment on the field for anybody to watch. Just kind of want to get an understanding from you where you're at when it comes to the league and how they are handling these concussions that do happen in football, and to your point about how they help you off the field, how they're also handling other retired players like yourself off the field too.
Yeah, I would say for the on-the-field stuff, I think the league, you can always be doing more, but from where I was when I played to where they are now is light years away. Like I can remember my father passed before the first regular season game in 1997. And I ended up playing in the game, got kicked out at halftime because the second quarter, because my emotions and things were everywhere. I was fighting the referees and everybody. And so I told the team I needed to talk to someone, and there was no one for me to talk to. And now every team has a mental health professional on it. I think the big difference is going to come when the current players, don't look at mental health, and a lot of them are getting to this place, don't look at mental health as a weakness. Or look at the concussion, coming back from concussions as a weakness, because that can jack you up for life, bro. And your life is much bigger than any touchdown you can score, or any tackle you can make, or any run you can, do, or pass you can throw or catch, and just really take the ramifications of these concussions seriously. Don't just go like, hey, well, whatever my life is going to be down the road, that'll be what my life is. Because when you see people that are living that life, man, it is not pleasant at all. Yeah. I mean, it is like, I've seen dudes that all of a sudden have tics. They can't talk.
Can't control themselves.
They can't control themselves. Yeah. They don't, they don't know stuff. They forget things. And then they're putting a lot of stress on their family and their kids and things like that. So I do like the direction that it's going. I don't like sometimes, even there's some former players or older players saying the guys are soft or this, that, the other thing. It's like, dude, there are things that you're suffering from in your life right now that you think are kind of cool to deal with that came because you played football. I have a son that just got a scholarship to play football at Portland State, and I'm asking him all the time, are you sure this is what you want to do? Don't do it because I'm asked because I played, because I don't care what you do if but don't play football because you think I want you to play football, And it's not that I don't want people to play football. I just didn't want him to put himself in that kind of harm's way. So I think the league has come a long way with it. I still think there's a long ways to go. And then as it relates to the alumni players, I think that's where some of the biggest ground can be made, because there are a lot of dudes that are struggling, and then I will say the NFL doesn't always make it so easy to get to the resources, and so if you're in a crisis and you're trying to navigate this complex system to get help, man, sometimes you just give up, and you're just like, I can't make another phone call. I can't, call another person. I can't fill out another piece of paper. Like, I'm in crisis. Yeah. And so I think they can make that part of it a little easier, but they are trying. I'll put it that way. They are trying, but I think there's a lot of work to do in that regard. And then I think there's more money they can put towards health care for retired players.
It's a work in progress, and they've come a long way. But they have a long way to go, and I think it's just going to be something like this for a very long time to come. Special Olympics, getting back to that, how rewarding when you go and talk to people, you said superintendents, students, whatever it is, how rewarding is it, number one, just to go out and speak to these kids or whoever, and then kind of get the idea, hey, we've got this school taking part in this, and I've made a difference. How rewarding is that for you?
Yeah, it's amazing, man. Like, I'm telling you, it's we have these promotional videos that we show a lot, and a lot of times, obviously, it's focused on our athletes. But if you watch, I always challenge people when they watch them to watch all the other people in the video, the other students, the parents, the teachers that are involved, the coaches, some of the competitors that they're going against, and look at the joy that's on their faces, or listen to the stories they tell about how working with our Unified Champion Schools model, how it's changed their life, or it's changed their perspective on inclusion and individual intellectual disabilities. And then also how it motivates the students. I said this earlier, that our young people get a bad rap these days about being entitled or lazy or, this, that, and the other thing. But, man, I'm telling you, the schools that I'm in and out of, and I'm in and out of schools all the time. I was in Minneapolis last week, Charlotte this week, Miami in 2 weeks, back to Virginia in about 3 weeks. So I'm in and out of schools all the time, man. I just don't see it. I see kids that are willing and ready to make a difference in the world. And this gives them a place to start exercising and learning those skills while they're in school. And so it's a very good model for empathy, for sympathy, for leadership, for understanding, for promoting inclusion, like meaningful inclusion, not just tokenistic inclusion, but real meaningful inclusion, where you have friends in the hallways, and you're sitting with people at the lunch table. You're not in a classroom down a dark hallway away from everybody, but you're included with the whole student body. So everybody is growing and everybody is feeling included. And so I really do. It's very gratifying to know that when you go to bed at night, that you put in a really good work for people that really deserve it. And then when you wake up in the morning, you get a chance to do it again. And so that's the thing that kind of keeps me motivated, is that when we tell a group of people, a group of young people, a school, a community, a neighborhood, that, hey, these are the outcomes that we can develop if you guys implement this strategy. That's the thing that keeps me really going, because you can't make a promise like that and then leave it. Like, you have to make a promise like that and follow through with it. And so we have a tremendous team. I think our team is, like, as it comes to inclusion and this type of work, we may have like the best team easily in the United States, maybe in the world. And we do great work. And then we have a lot of young people that are doing great stuff. And so it's the work that I was born to do. I put it that way. A lot of people think that, making it to the NFL was like the final destination. But for me, that was just the front porch for the rest of my life. And so the rest of my life has been able to bring these types of outcomes to our young people in these schools and with intellectual disabilities.
And all the things you've learned, right, over those steps and hits and whatever it is you've taken, both on and off the field, you're incorporating them now into your life, and also to the people you talk to. So great stuff. Certainly admire what you're doing and what you've done, and I know that there's going to be so much more great stuff to come. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, give me a favor, give me a call for the Sunday. Who do you have? Eagles, Chiefs? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, well, I'm a huge Jalen Hurts fan. I can't say I'm a fan of either team, but I just love this dude's just his grit and his perseverance and his leadership and his maturity, from being benched in the national championship game to being the backup the next year, transferring schools,
That's
and
right.
then even coming to Philadelphia. And even as early as last year, people were saying he was a weak link. And then over in one offseason, he turned himself into the strongest link on that team. And so that, to me, that's just a tremendous amount of courage to take all that on. And so I'm pulling for Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles. I think their defensive front is going to give the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, who's still probably going to be hampered with that ankle. You
that
have
injury.
Guys with 10-plus sacks. Man, that's 70 sacks as a total team. Rashawn Reddick coming off the side end with 15 sacks for the season. I think 3.5 already in the postseason and a forced fumble. I think it's going to be a tough. I think it's going to be a good game, but I think that Philadelphia win it in the trenches.
In the trenches. That's good. I'm going to cheer just for a good game because my team is San Francisco and they lost a tough one.
I can't like you, man. Like now we may not get to be friends now because that's
come on.
That's what we have to overcome in Seattle to get back to the chip. Is we got to get through San Francisco.
I know. Yeah, I've been a fan all these years. Anyway, it was a good game. Yeah, so hopefully it's going to be a good game on Sunday. That's the most important thing. Ray, really appreciated the time. And again, congrats on all you've done. And just continue on the great work because I know you're making such a difference in people's lives.
Well, I appreciate it, man. If you want to learn more about our Unified Champion Schools, you can go to generationunified.org. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Is at SO North America. TikTok is at Unified Generation. If you want to use any hashtags, use Unified Generation. And if you want to get involved with Special Olympics, you can reach out to your local state Special Olympics program. And we welcome volunteers. There's all types of opportunities to be involved. And then I promise you, if you engage with our athletes, you don't leave the same person. So it's a great place to go to help serve and deliver outcome to a very deserving group of people.
Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it.
Thank you, buddy.